Welcome to Roo Code Office Hours. Today I am joined by, welcome to Roo Code Office Hours. My name is Hannes Rudolph, and today I am joined by Elliot and Coston from ThisDot, as
Everybody?
well as, here we got Coston as well, which I don't think they're here right now. They have disconnected on us. As well as we have Matt and Danny from the Roo Code team. Matt is our developer manager. I don't know what we'd call you, lead developer. And Danny, you are, I think you're the CEO. So welcome everybody.
Matt's assistant.
Yes.
Coston says he'll be right back.
So our special guests, one of which is missing, are from ThisDot Labs. Elliot, do you want to tell me a little bit about ThisDot Labs? What do you guys do?
Yeah, we're engineering consultants, and so we've been helping clients deliver ambitious projects for a little over a decade, and lately our focus has been way more on AI, and so we're working within teams to increase their throughput and their quality, and we see regularly that there's like a last mile problem for teams that have adopted AI agents. Almost regardless of what the agent is, there's a little bit of a last mile problem, and we probably go into more what we see that as in the conversation today. But that's where we deliver value, is kind of bridging the gap between very capable agents and existing enterprise projects and processes. Those two things get like really close together, but getting them fully integrated and really working seamlessly is a challenge that everybody seems to be kind of struggling with. So that's where we deliver value.
Okay, that's interesting. When did AI first become part of your sort of day-to-day life in this regard? Like, can you recall a moment where the using AI in development role really just began to click for you?
Yeah, I can. I probably have a few of them, but I can share a couple, and then Costin, he's here now. I think he can probably share his experiences too. I'll be very open that I was rather skeptical on AI coding agents for quite a while, until I wasn't, I guess, let's say.
You and the rest of us.
Yeah. It came along the ride with like ChatGPT and stuff like that a few years ago, right? More of kind of like a general business tool. Pretty skeptical with that at first too, to be honest. But I think my most like notable memory is probably beginning of this year, probably late January, early February. I came across a few articles from some people I followed that really started to talk about some successes they were having with coding agents and how they were coming about those successes. It wasn't the the video of the latest agent that was released or the newest model. It was really getting into the showing their work on like this is how I'm using it in a very detailed way, and that kind of gave me the push to I need to go a little deeper. I need to try this a little bit more for myself. And so I started trying it in some of the ways that were described in some of those articles and saw similar success. And that kind of lit a fire that, has gone on until today, I'd say, in a lot of different ways.
How about you, Costin? Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You didn't. Keep going.
Costin, how about you? When did AI first have that moment where it clicked, the light switch sort of moment?
Yeah, I guess whenever AI was integrated in VS Code, so definitely like the early days of Copilot, I was utilizing that pretty heavily, just like as a pair programmer, like working closely with Copilot. And then early this year, we started using Roo Code at ThisDot, and that's where it really got like hot and heavy. That's where like the agent was, always with me, and I'm always developing with the agent. And I really started to it became gamified. Like, how good can I make this process every time? Like, how much better can I make the prompts? How much can this agent do for me in one pass so that I'm not having to constantly iterate back and forth? Like, I just want to give really good instructions and the agent just work. And Roo Code was great because it was just rolling out code for me. And really didn't require a lot of feedback because the prompting was, getting better from my side. And I guess that's where it really clicked early this year.
Yeah, this seems to be a common theme out there. I was a few months ahead when I guess maybe it didn't click, but I had wishful thinking, and I was working on these tools, and that's how I ended up here at Roo Code. And then we, part of the team that's helping make it happen now. So that leads me to my next question. With this space moving so quickly, every new model or feature seems to sort of upgrade or even completely upend the meta for best prompting techniques, or how much context to feed things, all these sort of things. How do you stay grounded? How does your team stay grounded? I'll give this question first to Elliot.
I think there's like some pragmatism that helps us here. So I think if you are really advanced and really up to speed, that probably is your experience, because you're constantly kind of at that edge of what you can get out of the various agents or models. And so with each release, you're seeing, which model has pushed that a little bit further, which new feature allows that to go a little bit further. And I'd say some of our team is that way. But who's not that way is the people that we help every day. A lot more of those teams have the tools, and they're kind of steering them around prompt after prompt, and they're wondering, how do I get this PR that it created to have less feedback? How do I get it in the patterns that are in the project already, in the style that our team uses, and those things are kind of far solved, actually. But it's really just getting that information out there and then disseminating it across a team that consists of people who are not all following this same stream of new releases and things like that, right? Like they've been focusing on maybe something totally different, and this is a little bit of a new area for them, so they're not following along. And I think being pragmatic in that direction helps us, because they don't need that nth degree yet. They'll get there, but a lot of the models and a lot of the tools for a while have been sufficient for what they're trying to do. So I think that helps us a little bit.
Okay, Danny, you had.
Yeah, I just had a question for Elliot, because of something he said kind of struck with me. Like sometimes it seems like you're probably encountering clients who just aren't up on the latest. But other times there's a role that skepticism is maybe playing, and I was wondering if you could pontificate a little bit on what you're encountering there, the range of approaches that people are taking, sort of with I'm curious to hear about that.
I think we definitely encounter a lot of healthy skepticism from leaders and from team members about, is it really there? And it being just AI in general, or let's say AI code generation in general. I know at ThisDot we certainly feel it's there, and we see it there. But I think in how to kind of attain it is often at kind of like arm's reach. Like I said, this kind of last mile thing is hard, because I think most people have had mixed but plenty of positive experience with, let's just say, vibe coding. And that doesn't even need to be like an engineer, right? A lot of roles have had probably a good experience with Lovable or something like that, right? That took them pretty far. And so everyone kind of has this it's more than hope, let's say, but this strong curiosity and an expectation that, this should be able to work. But I think there's very few teams that are finding out how to really bring it in and not end up in this kind of like spotty mixed adoption, to where like you have the people who are really investing individually and they're often running, they kind of have their own configuration, which works fine for an individual, but when you're trying to scale it to an organization and get within a process, that's where I think you run into some different needs. And so with team members,
Mhm.
the skeptics there, I think, are let's take I'll cast them in the best light. I think we run into a lot of skeptics who are focused on shipping, and they're really productive engineers, and they see this as a distraction because they're already strong performers, strong history of performance. They're focused on getting things done. And they're likely waiting to see someone be strongly successful with a tool before they spend time away from what they're already doing successfully to pick it up. And I think that's probably the best light that a skeptic would be within is they're not necessarily casting doubt or anything like that. They're open-minded, but they're waiting. And so I think those individuals on teams need early adopters around them to observe them and see how they work with the tools and see what their experience is. And I think those individuals are the most influential in an organization, actually, because they're probably looked up to in most teams. So when that switch flips for them, that's it's a linchpin within teams often.
Yeah. Coston, do you have anything to
Yeah.
add to that?
I do. ThisDot Labs is a software services consultancy, and this is an arms race. People are getting 5 times productivity using these tools, and it's very important that everyone on the team is following what's going on, understand what's working, across the company, so that everyone can, adopt the capabilities that we're finding. It's like a key part of this is that in our organization we have a lot of evangelism. We have Elliot, the CTO, who's pushing everyone to adopt these tools and follow what's going on in the industry, follow what's going on with Roo Code, follow what's going on with the other agentic AI services and LLMs, and test these and share the knowledge. So we have a lot of systems in place that enable this knowledge sharing. Everyone's testing, everyone's trying things, everyone's sharing, and we take that to the client, we take that to the customers, and we're finding a lot of success with these processes.
Good answer. Thank you. Can you give us a quick tour of your Roo Code setup? Like, what parts of the product are in play for you? Using VS Code extension with modes, / commands, task orchestration? Do you use Slack integration? Have you had a chance to try out the new PR reviewer we enabled on your guys' organization the other day? I think yesterday.
So I'm going to go ahead and speak for myself, because I know Elliot's a much more of a power user than I of like all of the Roo Code features. What I've really appreciated about Roo Code is just how everything works out of the box. It's already pre-configured with Roo modes that are incredibly good. I'm not having to do a lot of like tinkering and turning knobs and configuring things for my development environment to just work. So this is extremely valuable for me because I work with a variety of different clients. I'm moving to different projects, and working with customers on their infrastructure, on their machines. So just being able to pull an extension and it just work for me, and not have to do a lot of configuration of sub agents or modes or any of this kind of stuff to get really good results, it's great. Long-running jobs, I can provide really detailed prompts and get incredible results without a lot of like intervention, is incredible. And I'd like to just declare that I'm more like the the Apple user of agents, that I just want to open up my laptop and it just work. And I think Roo Code does really good with that.
Okay. Then over to you, Elliot, the tinkerer. What's your experience in setup?
I think I'm in the depths with all the knobs and levers. I'm very happy. I didn't start there. Let's say my journey, I think, started with Copilot, probably with most people because the Tab Complete was out for so long, and then kind of through Cursor a little bit. I think I skipped Windsurf at the time, and then found myself at Roo Code because it was really an evolution of wanting more control, wanting more ability, and so I think I've really enjoyed all the knobs, let's say, that Roo Code has. I think you can appreciate what you said too, Costin, because you're not really forced to interact with all that at day one, but it's there once you want to reach for it, which I think I really like. Hannes, I don't know how deep you want me to go. I'm happy to go really deep, actually, in some of the settings that I do.
I think that go as deep as you think
Okay.
will be of interest to our viewers. I think that we do have those two silos, the tinkerer and the out of the box. So let's hear your tinkerer.
Well, yeah. So let's talk a little bit in the extension then. So it's sticking with the extension for a moment in VS Code. The first thing is modes. Obviously, that is kind of one of the things that everyone sees out of the box. But one of the things I ran into early on was I had too many rules. And I think that was probably like, everybody goes through like a design pattern phase where like everything's a nail, right? And I think I went through that with rules and I had to back off on some of that. But a lot of that stayed. And so I find like the custom modes and things are a very good way to segment the rules so that they're there when they're needed and not when they're not. So I definitely use all the out of the box modes, but then have some others. I've had a lot of success with some modes around like code review, especially if you wanted code review to interact with GitHub or something like that through an MCP or something, or GitHub CLI. I've also had some really interesting and exciting success with exploratory testing. If your project has anything that's kind of headless, like if your project is a CLI tool or an API of some kind, anything like that's headless, I've had like insane success with Roo Code having to do exploratory testing. So, the unit testing and all that kind of stuff is a thing. But if I want to go through just, think up some random test cases, and I don't want you to actually write new test cases right now. I just want you to test. And maybe if you find a bug, then I might write a test case. But I just want you to be creative. And so a mode where you can kind of talk through that, but you also can turn up the temperature a lot on the model, I think has a lot of power. And like the temperature, I'd say from a tinkerer standpoint, is an uncommon setting within agents. But I think one that's really powerful when you're trying to do something that's more niche or unique. So I definitely play with the temperature of the models for things like the architect or debug. I try to keep it pretty flat or zero for like orchestration and coding. But even when I'm working on like specifications or plans, I have a mode that is like the highest reasoning tokens and like a 1 on temperature to really help me kind of brainstorm or think through different things. And I find that to be like really useful. After a little bit of use, I've moved pretty heavily to like larger chunks of work with Roo Code. And so some of my settings have evolved due to that. So some of the things I've turned off are like, I don't have it put the tabs in context anymore because I'm actually not even paying attention to the tabs much when I'm doing that. And so I'm not closing the tabs. So the tabs could have been from like the last task. And so the tabs might be misleading at that point. And so I've turned off like the context tab thing from VS Code. And I've like turned way up the context of like the workspace files, like the directory tree. I have that maxed out. And then another thing I turned off is VS Code does like the linting real time, right? But that has a little bit of delay, obviously. When you're working, it follows a little bit behind you, and when the agent's working, it's following way behind because the agent's moving faster than a human would, right? So I turn all that off, and I turn it off in VS Code too. I don't want the linting happening kind of real time, and I let the model choose when it wants to. Like when it's done, test. Run the build, run the linting, run tests when you're ready to. So it doesn't get like in the middle of its reasoning cycle trying to implement something and then, oh, I got to go fix this bug real quick. And it's kind of like an inserted prompt almost for it at that point. So I turned that off because I found like it would have a better success at autonomy with that off. So I don't know. That's a little bit of kind of the tinkering in the extension I've done. But finding a lot of success in a lot of those knobs, again, I haven't found in any other agent. So, you can mess with reasoning in Cloud Code with the keywords and things, but things like temperatures are found to be rather uncommon and really helpful.
So earlier, I described myself as the Apple user, and I will describe Elliot as the Linux user in this case, because he brings a lot of this knowledge to the team, and he's always, sharing kind of what he's experimenting with. And I am too. We all are, and it's an important aspect of learning these capabilities.
Yeah, that's been one thing I've been curious about too. Is I think first of all, Elliot I think is one of the most insightful and deepest thinkers I've met in the in the AI coding space.
Deepest tinkerers or deepest thinkers?
I'll take either. Thank you.
Yeah, thinkerer. Let's call it that. And it's awesome. I think that the Roo Code community is overrepresented with these types of people, and it's always exciting to meet them. But one thing I am curious about is, when they get back to work and get off of Discord, like how much are the, how well do our tools work to actually help you empower the people that are maybe a little bit more, the people that's trying to get work done, or the people that are a little bit more like Coston, Apple, self-described Apple users. I think that we could help connect the dots through some of our configuration and settings and checking things into GitHub. But I'm curious how well that works for you in practice, and whether there are areas we should consider about helping the thinkerers empower their organizations more.
Well, I'll jump in on this guy. I think this is massive in our experience. I think naturally a lot of people in this space are early adopters that are here right now. I think it's still probably on the early side of things. I don't think we're way at the beginning, but I think we're still on the earlier side of things. Talking about the skeptics from earlier and just the average person on teams, they're not going to often just go off on every new thing that gets introduced. A lot of people are going to learn by doing, and they're not going to necessarily go off and learn intentionally to start. and so I think leaders on teams, tinkers and things like that, they've got to be prescriptive to be successful with a broad group of people to start. And then that team will use the things that are prescribed. And then as they have successes, as they're curious, they'll learn more about those things, and then they'll dig deeper. I think like a great simple example is like some common / commands. That's a way to basically share prompts, talk about when to use them, get people to use them. They don't have to know what's behind that command. They just have to use it at first, right? So like as a team, coming in and offering a few of those little tidbits, whether that's configuration / commands, just process of going through things. I think starting with like a prescriptive approach is huge if you actually want to get significant adoption within a team or organization, because you're going to have the full curve of people like we're talking about, and to come at it expecting early adopters, because that's kind of the opposite of what you want with an early adopter. Like they don't want to be told what to do; they want to go and explore it themselves often, right? But when you turn that over and really want to get adoption within a team, I think having a foundation that gets people experience and lets them kind of learn it as they go and by doing, that's where we see the most successful teams, is the ones that are coming in with a prescriptive approach, not being overly heavy-handed, but not being hands-off and kind of letting everyone explore, because then you just get get 20% of the team that takes a look and the rest that just goes back to doing their work.
Yeah. Okay. We had this is a bit of a rabbit trail. We had one of our Discord users ask what your thoughts are on MCP servers.
I'll try to. I'm not sure which direction on MCP they want me to go on that, but I'll just riff, I guess. I think let's take the GitHub one, because the GitHub one's interesting because there's like a GitHub CLI and there's a GitHub MCP server, right? And so I think most popular agents have the ability to do terminal commands, so they have both options available, right? You could bring in the GitHub MCP or you could bring in the CLI tool, right? And so
Yeah.
That create. I'll talk security and MCPs in a second too, because I think it's an important thing. But like, you have the context issue with MCP servers, right? Like I think we all probably use a handful of tools every day, right? And if you want your agent to be to have autonomy across those tools, then you've got to bring in integrations of some form, right? Whether it's like terminal commands or MCPs or something, right? Or and so I don't think anybody probably successfully walks around with like 5 MCP servers loaded into their agent, because that probably is most popular MCPs are going to be a few dozen tools at minimum. And so that starts to add up a lot. And so you've got to have an agent that gives you kind of ability to off and on and pick tools and things like that, and manage your context with MCP. But in spirit, I love MCP servers, right? Like I want my agent to be able to do more, and I have to get it into my tools to be able to do more. It can't just live locally on my machine. Like teams are in GitHub or in Jira or whatever, right? And I want my agent to be able to go to where I am. I don't want to be copy and pasting things. We kind of left that a long time ago, right? Like that's like back when it was just ChatGPT. I was copy and pasting back. Like we've left that, right? Like we're in VS Code writing our code. That's where the agent, where Roo Code is with us, right? Now I want to work in my PR. I want reviews in there. I want the agent to go there. So I think MCPs is like, in spirit, are I want it to be more widely available and successful. So on the security side, really quick, we're pretty opinionated at ThisDot that organizations should not be adopting third-party MCPs at all, just because of the risk from an organizational standpoint. It's just too hard to manage, right? You've got something that's inserted in a very sensitive spot of the organization. Agents have a lot of access, and MCPs inherently have a lot of actual control over that agent. Through kind of a transitive chain there, they have the same access the agents do, essentially. So we're really sensitive to third-party MCPs. If an organization needs to build their own MCP, that's one thing, but that's kind of a build versus buy thing.
So they're not quite ready for prime time, unless
Hold
it's
up now.
from one of the major.
We really want providers to be building official MCPs and hosting them, and like having OAuth on their APIs and things like that. That's where I really want everybody to be doing that.
Yeah.
Hold up.
Yeah, hold up, because I love MCP. I think it's incredible. And this is how you connect tools to the new UI that we're all using, which, we communicate with natural language. And every major company should probably be building MCP tools for their services. Like
it's a new interface, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Like anything that I need to like go fill out some kind of form online or search for something, input, output, whatever. Like I should be able to chat with my Roo Code agent, Chat GPT, whatever else I can connect MCP tools to, and like get information. And it's extremely easy to do this now, because you can just build your own MCP tools. You can build your own MCP servers. You can have AI write it for you. Like there's enough documentation that it's extremely easy. And I'm so disappointed in every major company that does not have MCP tooling like listed out on all these services that have marketplaces for it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Part of our team's offering is to allow companies to curate their own list of these MCPs to make it easier and more secure, so that they can check them over first. I have another question here. Let's start with Coston. What was the first sort of oh wow moment with Roo Code where it saved you real time or pain?
I guess kind of back on that, just being able to to write a really detailed specification for what I needed built, and Roo Code just being able to take it and run with it and continue building it without me having to babysit an agent. Which for me, like Roo Code was the first agent that could do that for me, and it's really stuck with me. I continue riding this kangaroo that's doing such a good job. I mean, that's really it. I've been, I'm lucky that I already have the engineering experience to build the guardrails that make Roo Code extremely successful in an engineering environment. I can't say that every engineering org has these guardrails, but I tend to bake them in, and those long running tasks have just been really successful.
Before you go on to Elliot, can I ask a follow up? Like, is there? So you're talking about your wow moment, and we were earlier talking about folks that are maybe a little more skeptics. Is there something you show skeptics that has been? Because I assume you encounter a lot of them comparatively to some of us. Like, is there something you show skeptics that kind of brings them along on the same journey you've been on?
Yeah, the end to end. Build process of like, help me like develop some specifications for what I want built. Like the agent helps me plan the work, right? And then we make a detailed plan. It takes a plan, it makes a to-do list, or makes a plan for itself and the various modes that it's going to work with. And then following up, like whenever I'm showing someone, they're seeing the agent review the front end in the browser, which is incredible. Like that was an oh wow moment for me with Roo Code, because I'd never seen that before. Like actually manually testing the changes with not just like unit tests and these or Playwright or whatever, just like opening a browser and clicking around is insane. And then lint test build right there in the IDE, like that's incredible. Like just the agent just doing that for me, like knowing to do that. Okay, I can prompt it to also commit the changes, open a PR, whatever, and I'll go review it in GitHub instead of clicking around in the in the IDE. Like that's what I show people, and that's normally what sticks. Like kind of converts the non-believers.
Huh. So not just smoke and mirrors, actual solid uses.
Yeah. We talk about that 5 times productivity boost. It's probably more than that. But that somebody just takes some romantic time with the candles lit, writing a detailed specification for some work, and then just being able to just submit it, maybe via the cloud now, and the work get done for you, and you can come check it later. Like that's incredible.
Okay, so Elliot, what was your oh wow aha moment with Roo Code specifically, where it did something that you'd never had an agent do before?
So there was a time where most agents didn't write good code, right? And I was trying them, I'd say, at that point in time. And the oh wow with Roo Code was, wow, it writes much better code. And I think that was a point in time where I think a lot of that was a function of how many tokens is it using. A lot of the agents have kind of seen the light of, we're going to have to burn some tokens here to get something done at this point. But beginning of this year, that was not the case. There were a lot of fixed price agents, and I think the assumption or understanding, if you really dug into it, was not a lot of context going to the model there, and it wasn't necessarily the model wasn't capable; it just didn't have as much information. And I think the oh wow with Roo Code was, okay, here's an agent who is letting me spend money. I was happy to spend money to get successful code, but okay, here's an agent that will allow me to do that. I think I'm doing way more than $20-$30 of work a month. I'm happy to pay more. So that was probably my early oh wow, and then the subtasks and the orchestration was definitely another wow, because I started to be able to achieve way longer running tasks, right? Like if you're trying to run something that even if it's simple but has to do it many times across many files and
Yeah.
can't do it in mass in one swoop, like it's not a find and replace that can just be done with like a Linux command, right? Something a little bit more complicated, that it has to read and look at a bunch of files, but it is a little bit repetitive, even like it's a refactor or something like that. Um, you outstrip a single context window. This is kind of unavoidable, and so that means you had to break that task up into, okay, now I just need do these 5 files, now do these 5 files, and subtasks and orchestration brought in a new reality where I can just do the whole task, and it can break it up into subtasks, and get the whole thing done. And so that was definitely an oh wow, for me.
Okay. On that similar note, are there any features that you've tried and parked for now, like ones that you thought might have promise, but you tried it out and it just didn't do it for you? I mean, I'm scared of the answer because I didn't get you to tell me what you were going to say, so
I'll
go
say
easy
one that's
on
probably
me.
pretty tame. I've never gotten into the code base indexing.
Oh wow,
I've never gotten into
to me
it.
is big that you haven't. Like, did you give it a
And
try? Was it just too clunky?
Dare I say I've never tried it, because I didn't want to configure it, and I am a tinkerer. Don't get me wrong. But I've never wanted to configure it. But I'd say the bigger reason is I've never felt I needed it. I've not run into a problem where I'm like, oh, you know what? How do I get over this? And let me turn that on. And so maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's another aha around the corner for me with this. But I'd say that's probably the most notable one. If we want a small one, I turn off the browser, where it can manipulate the browser. I want it to just. I'm not having it do much browsing typically, especially now that a lot of the docs are like MD files that you can pull down. So I do have it do requests a lot, right? But I didn't have a lot of love for like when it starts opening the browser and scrolling. So that's those two are probably.
Well,
like
I'll agree with you on the browsing, but I'm going to make it my personal message, my
On the indexing?
personal mission to get you on board with indexing. I had to do this with the team. I think the moment of truth was when I asked Roo Code, with indexing and without indexing, what is boomerang mode? And the one with indexing figured it out, and the one without ended up asking me if I heard that term at a meeting. So, Coston, what's your what's a feature that maybe you thought I'm going to give it a try, and then you were like, ooh, cringe?
Okay. Well, first I want to talk about the indexing because like I knew about the feature, but I thought it was already doing it. Maybe that's a good thing because I am not tinkering with indexing either. I just assumed that it was indexing. So my bad. Cringe, probably cringe to me is switching LLMs. Like, yeah, I can go change settings and change which LLMs I'm using, but I'm like using Sonnet 4.5 like all the time. And so that's a real soft response, but like I don't care to change my LLM very often. Like I'll go experiment, but I have what I'm really happy with right now, and I never do that anymore.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So indexing, and so for you, it's you thought we already did that, and the thing that you really don't you don't like tinkering around with the different profiles.
I don't have time, like I'm having such good luck. Like, I'm writing software, I'm writing code, and Sonnet does a really good job for me. So don't really, sometimes I do, but I'm always unhappy when I do that because I don't understand. I don't know how to communicate with it well enough. I think that's what the issue is. Like I know my partner Sonnet, and we have this love language, and we communicate so well together. I normally just, I'm switching right back to
when
it.
to say what to say. You know how to press the buttons, but
Yeah,
you switch
exactly.
to you switch to GPT-5, and suddenly you're working with this slow model. And it talks differently and acts different.
It gives me
it's way better.
The different markdown documentation that I don't want. I like Sonnet can give me those emojis. I'll tell it not to give me the emojis. And normally, if I just whisper in Sonnet's ear, it gives me what I want.
You're completely right. You're completely right.
Well, I'm hoping to join the. I was on the Opus train, and I jumped to the GPT-5 train, and it's slow, but it's solid. And I suspect I might be jumping to the Gemini train pretty soon here. I'm excited for Gemini 3, but I think Google's probably going to break the internet with that. So on to the next question. Since adopting AI, what has your team's approach to modernization been? How has it changed?
Crazy documentation. Like we're utilizing AI to just document like crazy and like build out the context that we're going to use whenever we're modernizing. Like we just haven't been able to do it at the rate that we're doing it now. Like we can just cook documentation and just build it out so much faster. That's what really sets up a modernization project for success, is just like have all that documented up front.
Yeah, what's your process for documentation? Like I haven't heard a lot of details from teams that have processes around it.
Yeah,
good question.
So I mean, the first thing probably like what I'm into now is just letting AI cook. Like give me all of the architecture and dependencies, all of these things about a project. I guess like an easy place to start was with the init command, and setting up an agents.md file for the project, and like let the agent explore from there. I mean,
do you find that you need to review a lot of that?
Absolutely.
Or do you just my biggest worry when we put that command is people are going to use it. It's going to make these files, and then they're going to message support, which I'm usually the first line of, and tell me it's broken. And then after like an hour of working with them, I'm going to figure out that it's because the init command put some goofiness in there.
Yeah. I don't remember who said it, or I went to try to find it recently, but I couldn't find it. But there's like there was a tweet, I believe it was recently, talking about a line of incorrect code is just a line of bad code. A line in a spec, like an incorrect line in a spec, is like 100 or 1,000 lines of bad code. And an incorrect line in a rule or like an agent file or something like that is maybe 10,000 lines of bad code. And so I think for anybody thinking like, where does a human in the loop prioritize their effort and energy, I would say that kind of analogy tells you where. So something that's going to come out of the init command or that you're putting into rules, I think that's where more review should be gone into, right? Like, so if you've got a PR that's changing your core rules or your structure, I think it's pretty critical. Things like slash commands have to be actively used, but things that are going to be rules that are there with every single prompt, I think it's critical. That shapes so much of the code that's going to be generated.
Yeah, and the other half of that I worry about is that you get it right the first time, but then a few weeks or a few months later, it's no longer right.
The model changes or something,
well, model changes, or you write new code that is now covered by it.
Like your architecture shifts, and this pattern is still here, but you've moved on.
Yeah. I've been wondering. It feels like you need some kind of process to keep up to date on this, which I've never actually seen human engineering teams do well. But it does seem like there's maybe room for a documentation checker or updater or something like that to do better than
a little
we can.
clock in the corner that says you're rules file or your documentation is this many days old.
30 minutes to midnight or
And
something.
it will just grow bigger and consume the Roo Code interface until you click that button.
Well, I will say I found tremendous success in asking models why it's doing something, and really being clear that that's not a command masked in a question. I'm not asking you to change it right now. I'm asking you to explain why you did that. And often it will point to reasoning and rules and things like that if you prompt that correctly. And that can be really helpful if you're not getting the results you want, because that could lead to an incorrect rule, or it could lead to just a lack of a rule that you need to add of some kind, or a guideline, right? And so this idea of, like, at the end of a task, retrospecting with the agent, with the model, you're going to, just like in a PR review, you're going to get some comments that you love and some that, are so. I think it'll be the same thing here. But I find regularly that there's little nuggets of things that I'm considering. Okay, should I add that or should I not? And just find it to be really helpful process.
Yeah, there's one place Hannes and I think, are on an extreme here. We both love this feature that I don't think everyone else does, but that we added a setting in the UI for the UI setting to enable the thinking, show all the thinking output. And if you actually watch that thing go by, it's so good. It just live debugging why the agent is doing what it's doing.
Yep.
So I get how not everyone loves it, but I would encourage if people give it a try, just to, I don't know, anyone who's managed people before, like, I would give anything to know that about the people I manage. And so being able to do it for the agents is a nice second. Just see the
I like
live.
to wait for the ding, so I'm not watching it scroll by, but it's good if you want to scroll back up and understand it.
Yeah. Well, I because part of my role seems to have fallen on building modes and adjusting the system prompt, I watch that like a hawk. Not always, because I often have 5 or 6 agents going at once. But then when it's time, when things aren't acting the way I want it to, I'll hyper focus in on that and watch and go, it thinks it's supposed to do this. And I'll go back and look and be like, huh, like no comma changed. And every other models usually read between the lines and figure out that your prompt is incorrect, and they guess what you really wanted. But I'm finding with GPT-5, it does a little less of this guessing, which is problematic sometimes, but it also leads to more consistent outcomes when I have instructions, because it doesn't guess, oh, he meant this. No, I said this. That's what I said. So anyways, yeah, that's a bit of a rabbit trail once again. Here I've got, I think we'll get through these questions. We won't. So can you walk me through a recent task where you used Roo Code? I'm curious whether it kicked off in Slack, started as an issue right inside the plugin. I guess I'm pushing for how you've seen teams use other methods beyond just the VS Code kicking off a task.
So I'll say that I was recently working with someone from another team who pulled their story down from ADO and then started working with the agent to process that task. Fill out the, ask any questions about the task, work with the agent to just kind of fill out a detailed specification for the work that was going to be completed. Yeah. And that was really nice. I've done a little bit of that myself, but I'll confess that I don't utilize MCP enough to pull down stories and tasks. But I do think it's a really nice workflow. Just like, hey, get this ticket, analyze the story and build out a detailed specification for the work we're going to complete. And the agent goes and does the research and comes back with a plan, iterate on the plan, and get started. Like, that's a great workflow.
Yeah. Have you used the Slack integration? Do you guys have that enabled in your organization?
We have it enabled. We're admittedly low users of it, I will say.
Okay.
But I think, we're unique. I think in the past, I've worked in product organizations we're a consultancy. It's a little bit different, right? Because our Slack is not where we're talking often when we're working on client stuff, right? We're in the client Slack or the client teams and stuff like that, and that's where most of the chatter goes on. And so we have less at bats at that inherently, but I think
that makes sense.
where we do is like we have like some repos and things for like our website and other things, and that works differently than like a traditional coding project, right? You have like a lot of stakeholders of that from various backgrounds. So I think we see opportunities with using Slack as like a kickoff for changes to things like that, because it's not all engineers talking about that, right? And so VS Code is not native to most of those people in that conversation. And Slack and Roo Code present an opportunity to get people to propose PRs who never would have before, because they're not going to pull down the code and open VS Code and figure out which file to change and all that kind of stuff. So I think we're seeing that, but that's not like a predominant thing for us just by the nature of it. But I think we're really excited for teams to see the agent go to where they are, which I think bots in general are a big passion of mine with AI for coding. I think that's feel very strongly about where it's going, and I think inherently bots need to be where the users are, and Slack and chat is definitely one of those places.
Yeah. No, the reason I'm curious about the Slack one is I haven't seen tons of it out there until I guess in this last week.
You see a little bit of it, yeah.
Somebody else was another tool. I forget which one.
Claude.
Was it Codex? Was it Cursor that came out with some Slack integration? And I don't think I've seen other. We're surely not the first, but it sort of makes me think, oh, we're on the right track, right? The other guys are moving in this direction.
The finest form of flattery, right? Yes. Yes, I think
Yeah.
so.
Y'all see Plan Mode came out this week? That was exciting.
I did not.
I wonder where they got that idea. Thank you, Klein. Shout out to our friends over at Klein, whom we have deep respect for. So, so you guys come in to help companies figure out how to use AI, how to slot it into their workflows. When you first get embedded with a client, what are the dead giveaways that there's going to be fast wins with coding assistants? Like, is there something specific that you see in their culture?
Well, definitely, like culturally, you're going to pick up on where on the spectrum the people of a team are in terms of like interest and curiosity, and like willingness and stuff like that. But I would say we have a little bit of like a checklist that we assess projects against. That it's less of a culture thing, more of like a readiness type of thing. Like what are the frictions or what are the tailwinds that are going to be there depending on the answers to these questions. And I'm almost certainly going to date myself with what I'm about to say, but if you all are familiar with the Joel test, which is like a 10 or a dozen or so questions about an engineering organization or engineering team, and how well they kind of stack up to best practices organizations. I think we have like a very similar kind of approach from like an AI perspective. In the things that we kind of cover in that are, can you build from the CLI, for example, or are you like an IDE only type of development shop? And a few other things. It's essentially how equipped is the agent going to be is really what these questions are starting to get at, right? So like, can you build from the CLI? Do you have linting and can it be run by the agent from the CLI? Do you, if it's a compiled language, do you have a lot of warnings so that the agent won't be able to tell, did it add a warning or not? Because there's a bunch of existing ones. So like stuff like that. Do you have automated tests? What's the status of the documentation if it exists or not, right? Like, is it developer facing documentation? Do you have a process that utilizes PRs and are your comments going into PRs and things like that, right? There's teams that don't fully do that. They just kind of pair and talk about the work and merge it, right? So like where you stand there, a lot of questions in that direction, because if somebody's answering yes to most of those, we know that we're going to have a really quick success, because the agent's going to be really effective because it has a lot of the tools it needs to generate code well. If a lot of that is no, that tells us where we need to focus, and we'll use the agent to turn those things to yeses. Thanks for the emoji there, Siri. But yeah, if a lot of those are no, there's still going to be wins with AI, but the wins they're looking for are not, okay, I got unit tests, right? Like, yes, that is like a leading indicator, but ultimately they want value added to the product that they're working on with AI.
Yeah.
And so like, if we have to churn in the basement on a lot of these kind of precursors, that's still better than nothing. It kind of goes back to your modernization question. A lot of these more legacy projects don't have a lot of this stuff. And so AI offers a bridge to actually get there, which previously it probably was unattainable due to the effort. But we go through that checklist.
Yeah. Costin, once a team, I'm going to shift and not give you the same question. Once a team begins to embrace AI for coding, what's the most common anti-pattern that you run into? Like, what's the one thing people just instinctively gravitate towards doing incorrectly when they first embrace AI coding? And then how do you fix that?
I guess it's like really terrible prompts, looking for magical results from the agent, like read my mind and produce this code for me. And that's what their prompts look like to me, because the way that I'm prompting now is like detailed, and I'm spending a lot of time on prompting because I want all of the laborious code that's been written, thousands of times before to be composed for me by the agent. Like, I don't want to have to, specify too much after the code is written. Like, I don't want to have to do multiple passes. So what they do is what folks that are struggling with AI typically do, from my point of view, is they write, short, a detailed prompt that's like this big, a little paragraph or something, and they expect, a one-shot win with AI. So that doesn't work. So, we typically advise to start small and, treat it like someone you're pairing with, and learn how to communicate with your agent. Of course, like, we advise what's been successful for us along the way. And it's that treating the AI like an oracle situation.
Have you used the prompt enhancing feature in Roo to help you with that?
I have, but I don't do that much. I have them on like templates that I'm running with most of the time. You
can modify the prompt that's used to generate that, right?
Yeah, and I'm just kind of like so I do have AI like help me develop the first pass of a prompt based off a template, but I don't really do a lot of like enhancement. I just I don't do the button. I just ask it to help me build this thing that I'm doing.
Interesting. I like that use. I like that you guys are not relying on all the bells and whistles. You're relying on how does this agent actually perform, not with this. Yeah.
And part of it is because some of our work has to be agent agnostic as we move from team to team too. That's part of it. And so prompts and templates can move around with us.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I suppose that's a pretty good strategy for teams to take as they have different tools they're working with, not to rely too heavily on any given bell or whistle. These are gravy and they're useful, but
I don't know that we recommend that, to be too honest. I think there are companies that have a strategy of, we don't want to, as a company, because we're large enough, we can't mandate an agent company-wide. And I think as an org, that's fine. But I think within a team, it's a little bit messy to have one person using one agent, another using another. I think that back to that kind of prescriptive nature of how to try to work with teams, I think that can be rather challenging. I mean, I think if you're in a startup and you're like 4 people and it's just like 4 killers and it's not really an issue, that's one thing, right? But when you're in a team and you're trying to move as one, I think it's harder. I mean, I think there can be disagreement, right? But I think in the end, like the team's better off if you kind of pick a direction and kind of share how to be successful in that direction together, because then you're working more as a team.
No, that makes sense. I've got a few more questions. We're going to go a little over time if that's okay with you guys.
Okay.
I think that AI development requires a different level of awareness than it did simply when you were, writing code, by hand. It used to be a situation where your awareness of what you were writing, I say writing because that's not what you're doing these days necessarily, was inherent. Like you wrote it, you owned it, you knew exactly what it did. And when you found a bug, it made sense. Aha, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you remembered not to do that next time, hopefully. But working with AI, it's sort of like being in a mech suit. You don't feel the weather on your skin. And it's really easy to lose sight, I think, on code quality. Oh, it worked. Good, great, wonderful. So have you ever seen or experienced a near miss that made you stop and think, like, we need a new rule or a new workflow, because we're moving so fast now that it's going to be increasingly more likely that this issue is going to, go under the radar and occur?
I'd say no. And no, we haven't really had that kind of near miss situation. I think when we come into most teams, there's a lot of skepticism. And I think we've yet to interact with the team that takes humans out of reviews and takes kind of testing off the table, whether they do it in an automated fashion or a manual fashion. I think we've yet to encounter a company that is to the maturity with AI reviews and kind of automation to where AI is going to write the code and it's going to get merged and out to users without a human doing anything with it on the process. I don't know that we believe that must be the case, but I think that's been our experience so far, is trying to get people to that point. But we've not seen anybody who, I don't think there's been enough time, because I think the thing that's lacking is comfort. And maybe some inherent bias, right? There's this weird thing that happens. So like just humans trusted more for some reason. And sometimes there can be a logical reason why that is if somebody really explains it, but often there's not. And we kind of have this funny thing, like the person who joined the team yesterday and is 2 years into their career is okay to review a PR and to get merged and go to users. But this agent and model's not. And I think we as humans have an inherent bias there on that, right? Because like most teams don't require the most senior tenured person to look at every line of code that comes across. And so, but I do think there's a time that matters here in getting confidence in their ability to configure, set up, and leverage AI to be successful. I don't think it's actually on. I don't think it's on AI to get any better. I don't think it's an issue of AI doesn't cross a threshold at this point. It's teams' ability to have documentation, have processes, have prompts in a way to get there. So I think in a little bit of getting, wrestling with their own biases a little bit too, which I think just takes time.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Coston.
So, I mean, I will say that when we go in and work with these people, like we are coming in with our culture too, which is heavy on ownership, and that engineering requires good judgment. that's like a key part to, that's a key role that we have as software engineers, is like showing good judgment. We always had that. We had that with Stack Overflow. Like, you had the people who copy paste Stack Overflow and trust it, and then you have people who, read the code, read the manual, like understand what's going on. That's what we bring, and that's where a lot of our, the folks that we're working with are too. Like they have a high level of ownership and judgment, and that's kind of what separates us from like the vibe coders that are just like shipping shit out there. Excuse me. And just letting it fly like that. So yeah, I mean, I just want to throw that out there.
No. Well, then I have one for you. Then, looking ahead, how do you see the team structures evolving? I mean, this plays right into what you're saying. As tools like Roo Code become more integrated into development, do you think that we'll see wider contributor bases, fewer handoffs, smaller PRs, something, different?
Well, I always hope for smaller PRs. So say that.
So does
God, please make your PR smaller. If you're listening, just make them smaller. They're probably too big, even with AI. Smaller, faster moving teams. That's what AI is bringing us. We're seeing it today. Like, people are just going so much faster. You're able to assemble, your own little special ops team that goes and ships some, big features, and move on to other things. It's easier to learn it, learn technologies, learn code bases, implement code. Wider contributor bases, more people involved earlier on, and then, fewer handoffs.
Yeah. Elliot, name one task that you'll never do again. Now that you've got Roo Code or whatever agent you're using today.
I give you two answers. I think one is like a piddly basic one, but opening a PR, I'm not going to do that again, I don't think. I have kind of my own style of how, teams have templates, and that's fine, but like the things you put in there and what I want to do, I like to kind of groom my PRs for reviews and stuff like that. And that takes effort and time, but you know what? An agent can do that very quickly. I'm probably not going to be doing that much anymore. But I'd say the more meaningful thing, and it's just more statement of AI in general, is I'm not going to stare at a blank page. And I don't mean that like as if I'm having to write a document. I mean that kind of generally, including documents and everything else. I'm someone who always struggled to write the first lines on a page, but I'll jump instantly if there was something already there in terms of where I wanted it. So like this idea of like steering something into port versus kind of like getting it going was always the sticking point in terms of productivity for me. Now I'd say with like code, I probably jump pretty quickly. So probably leaning a little bit more towards writing and things, but like, let's say I'm having to document my code or stuff like that, like getting started. And so I'm never going to be stuck trying to figure out how do I start, because AI can already give me, give me 3 different ways. Tell me which one you like. Starting point, right? So, that's a huge one for me.
Well, Coston, what's this? This is the final question, so feel free to take your time. No rush. What is one thing that Roo Code has enabled you to never do again?
Oh, dude, I'll never set up all the little repository configurations manually again. Like lint test, build, Husky, lint stage, GitHub actions, all of these little configurations that just like set up the guardrails, set up the rails that agents thrive on. I don't have to do that anymore. Like,
yeah, that all have their own syntax that you forget because you haven't done it in 6 months, and then you're having to set up another project and you have to go remember it all. Yeah.
Yeah. And, well, I do set up a lot of projects all the time. Like I'm constantly cooking new projects, especially with AI, and just being able to just roll out the red carpet for AI to do work is amazing. And I don't have to do it anymore. I don't have to worry about the just setup and, all of these other little configs. Like, never again. Let AI do it. That's so boring.
Okay. Well, let's close it up. But Matt, what is your answer to that question? What's one task that Roo Code, besides clicking approve, that you'll never do again?
I mean, I just don't write code anymore. Like for me, it's all just prompting. And yeah, I know we got a similar answer last week, but I've always gotten feedback as a manager that I need to be more hands off, but I always kind of struggled with it, because I felt like the feedback loops were just so long compared to like me being able to, to just do something. But all of a sudden, when you have this alien intelligence like just waiting there for you to type, like, I'm more like, just this is short prompt, it's just so addictive and really just, just being able to fire so many of those off. It's like too slow, like coding by hand. So yeah, I think for me, it's just all coding in English from here on out.
Thank you very much for that answer. And thank you, Elliot and Coston, for joining us as well. Danny had to leave a little early, but I guess we'll see you guys next week on the Roo Code community podcast here. Thank you very much
Thank you for
joining.
having us.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.